Welcome back to Deep Science Sleep, where we explore the wonders of our natural world through a lens of tranquility and fascination. Tonight, we're venturing into one of Earth's most magnificent ecosystems, the tropical jungle, or as scientists often call it, the tropical rainforest. These verdant realms of towering trees, perpetual moisture, and ancient rhythms offer us a perfect sanctuary for peaceful contemplation as we drift towards sleep. So settle in, get comfortable, and prepare to immerse yourself in the gentle science of the jungle, where every raindrop, every leaf, and every creature moves to the slow, steady pulse of deep time. Let the rushing world fade away as we explore these timeless forests together. The symphony of rain, jungle precipitation, and water cycles. There's something profoundly soothing about rain, and nowhere on Earth does rain perform its symphony quite like it does in the tropical jungles. Picture yourself beneath the jungle canopy on a typical afternoon, feeling the first gentle drops that signal the beginning of the daily deluge. The rain in tropical forests isn't rushed or violent. It's a slow, methodical process that has been perfecting itself over millions of years. In the Amazon rainforest, the largest and most famous jungle on our planet, rainfall averages around 2,300 millimeters per year. But this figure barely captures the poetry of what actually happens. In some northwestern portions of the Amazon basin, yearly rainfall can exceed 6,000 millimeters. That's over 200 inches of water descending from the sky in a gentle, persistent rhythm. To help you visualize this, if you could stand in one spot for an entire year in these wettest regions, the accumulated rain would rise above your head, reaching heights of 16 to 20 feet. But here's where the story becomes truly mesmerizing. A single tree, just one individual among the billions that populate these forests, can lift approximately 100 gallons of water from the ground through its roots and release it into the air each day through its leaves. This process, called transpiration, is like breathing for trees. As water evaporates from countless tiny pores on the underside of leaves, it carries with it the tree's excess heat, cooling the forest in much the same way that perspiration cools your skin on a warm day. Now multiply that single tree by the nearly 390 billion trees estimated to inhabit the Amazon. On a typical day, these trees collectively release 20 billion tons of moisture into the atmosphere. 20 billion tons. Let that number settle into your mind as something both incomprehensibly vast and beautifully simple. It's just trees doing what trees have done for eons, breathing out water in a slow, steady rhythm. This moisture doesn't simply vanish into the stratosphere. Instead, it seeds the formation of clouds that drift westward across the Amazon basin. As these clouds move, they release their water as rain, which falls onto the canopy, soaks into the soil, gets absorbed by roots, travels up through trunks and branches, and is released again through leaves. A single water molecule might make this journey from sky to land 5 or 6 times before finally flowing down rivers to the ocean. Scientists have discovered that this recycling is so efficient that in the Amazon, 50 to 80% of moisture remains within the ecosystem's water cycle, perpetually circulating in a closed loop of sublime efficiency. The implications of this water cycling extend far beyond the jungle itself. Moisture generated in the Amazon eventually falls as rain as far away as Texas, while forests in Southeast Asia influence rain patterns in southeastern Europe and China. Scientists studying rainfall in America's Midwest have discovered that it's affected by forests in the Congo, halfway around the world. The jungle's breath becomes the world's weather, connecting everything in an invisible web of water vapor and wind. Perhaps what makes this most conducive to peaceful contemplation is the timelessness of the process. These water cycles have been functioning for millions of years, long before humans walked the earth, and they continue today with the same patient rhythm. Rain falls, trees drink, leaves transpire, clouds form, rain falls again. An endless, meditative loop that requires nothing from us except perhaps our quiet appreciation. Think about the journey of a single raindrop. It begins its descent from a cloud perhaps 2 or 3 miles above the jungle floor. As it falls through layers of warm, humid air, it picks up speed, pulled by gravity toward the green canopy below. But its journey doesn't end with a violent crash. Instead, it's caught first by the highest leaves of the emergent trees, those giants that poke above the main canopy. From there, it might slide along a leaf surface, following the precise architecture of drip tips, those pointed leaf extensions that have evolved specifically to shed water efficiently. Our raindrop then continues downward, perhaps falling from one leaf to another, each interaction slowing its descent, gentling its impact. By the time it reaches the forest floor, a journey that might take many minutes for this single drop, it has been filtered through layer after layer of leaves, each one reducing its energy, transforming what began as a potential erosive force into a soft, nurturing caress upon the soil. Once on the ground, the raindrop encounters a thick layer of leaf litter and humus, decomposing organic matter that acts like a sponge, absorbing the water almost instantly. Most jungle soils are surprisingly poor in nutrients, a fact that surprises many people who assume such verdant growth must spring from rich earth. But the jungle has evolved a different strategy. Nearly all nutrients are stored not in the soil but in the living biomass itself. Roots spread wide and shallow, forming dense mats just below the surface where they can quickly capture nutrients released by decomposition. The water from our raindrop might be absorbed by these roots within hours or even minutes, beginning its journey upward through the tree. Through a process that still fills scientists with wonder, this water is pulled up through the xylem, specialized tubes in the wood, rising against gravity through sheer molecular cohesion and the pulling force of transpiration at the leaf surfaces above. In the tallest trees, this water might climb 150 feet or more, molecule pulling on molecule in an unbroken chain from root to leaf. At the leaf, some of this water is used in photosynthesis, that miraculous process by which sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide are transformed into sugar and oxygen. But much of it simply passes through the leaf and evaporates from those tiny pores on the underside, returning to the atmosphere to begin the cycle anew. Our single raindrop, having completed one circuit, merges with billions of others in the humid air above the canopy, eventually condensing into a new cloud, ready to fall again. This cycle never stops. Even at night, even during the dry season in those jungles that experience one, the cycle continues. It slows, perhaps, but never ceases. The jungle breathes constantly, a slow inhalation of rain, a patient exhalation of mist and cloud. It's a rhythm older than mountains, more persistent than stone, as reliable as the tides. For those of us seeking rest, there's profound comfort in this reliability. While our human concerns may feel urgent and chaotic, the jungle maintains its ancient pace, utterly unmoved by our frenzy. Rain has fallen on these forests for uncounted millions of years, and if we protect them, it will continue falling for millions more. In this perspective, our worries seem smaller, more manageable, less capable of disturbing the peace we seek. The sound of jungle rain is itself a meditation. Unlike the harsh percussion of rain on rooftops or pavement, jungle rain produces a softer, more complex acoustic landscape. It's the whisper of water on millions of leaves, each one a different size, shape, and angle, creating a subtle variation in tone. It's the deeper drumbeat of drops hitting the forest floor, muffled by leaf litter. It's the gurgle of water finding its way along branches, the occasional splash as accumulated water releases from a cupped leaf. All these sounds blend into what researchers call white noise or brown noise, sound across all frequencies that masks other, potentially disturbing sounds and creates an envelope of acoustic comfort. Jungle rain also modulates temperature in the most gentle way. As water evaporates from leaf surfaces, it cools the air immediately surrounding the tree. This cooled air sinks slightly, creating gentle convection currents that mix the forest air without creating harsh winds. The temperature in a jungle varies remarkably little compared to open landscapes. Perhaps only a few degrees between day and night, creating a thermal stability that allows life to flourish without the stress of extreme fluctuations. Even the chemistry of jungle rain is noteworthy. As water falls through the canopy, it picks up organic compounds from leaves, acids, tannins, and other chemicals that give jungle water its characteristic slightly tea-colored tint. This isn't pollution, but rather the natural signature of a healthy forest ecosystem. These compounds acidify the water slightly, helping to weather rock and release minerals that plants need, contributing to the nutrient cycle in subtle but important ways. The architecture of stillness, jungle layers and vertical zones. The tropical jungle is not a homogeneous green wall, but rather a carefully structured world organized into distinct vertical layers, each with its own character, its own rhythm, its own contribution to the forest's overall serenity. Understanding these layers helps us appreciate the remarkable order underlying the apparent chaos of jungle life. At the very top, rising 40 meters or more, sometimes reaching heights of 60 to 80 meters, stand the emergent trees, those scattered giants that tower above their neighbors like forest elders surveying their domain. These are the individuals that have won the competition for light, their crowns bathed in direct sunlight for hours each day. To survive at these heights, emergent trees have developed special adaptations. Small, tough leaves with waxy coatings to minimize water loss in the drying sun and wind, wide-spreading crowns that maximize light capture, and enormous root systems, often buttressed by wing-like flanges that help anchor these giants against storms. Life in the emergent layer is one of extremes: intense sunlight and heat during the day, cooling winds, dramatic temperature swings between day and night. Yet even here there's a stately calmness. These trees don't grow quickly. Many of the emergents are hundreds of years old, some exceeding 1,000 years. A tree that has stood for 10 centuries knows something about patience, about enduring, about the long view that transcends the frantic pace of modern life. birds inhabit this highest layer. Eagles soaring on thermals, harpy eagles scanning the canopy below for prey, parrots flying in pairs or small flocks. These are creatures of the air, and they bring to this level a sense of openness, of connection to the sky. When you imagine the emergent layer, picture those massive crowns silhouetted against blue sky or sunset clouds, swaying gently in breezes that never reach the forest floor far below. Beneath the emergent layer lies the canopy proper, that dense ceiling of vegetation roughly 6 meters thick that forms the main roof of the jungle. This is where most of the forest's life resides. The canopy receives abundant sunlight, creating optimal conditions for photosynthesis, and it's here that trees produce most of their flowers and fruits. Scientists estimate that the canopy houses up to 90% of all jungle animal species and perhaps half of all plant species. The canopy is a world unto itself, largely invisible from the ground and historically very difficult for humans to study. It wasn't until the 1980s and 1990s, when researchers developed techniques like canopy walkways and crane systems, that we began to truly understand this aerial realm. What they found was astonishing: an entire ecosystem functioning above our heads, with animals that never descend to the ground, plants that never touch soil, complex food webs and symbiotic relationships all taking place in the green sunlight filtering through leaves. One of the most fascinating features of the canopy is crown shyness, a phenomenon where the uppermost branches of neighboring trees don't quite touch, maintaining narrow gaps between crowns. From above, this creates a striking pattern, a network of channels separating each tree crown like rivers dividing islands. Scientists aren't entirely certain why this happens. Some believe it's an adaptive feature that reduces the spread of leaf-eating insects or diseases from tree to tree. Others suggest it might reduce physical damage from branches scraping against each other in the wind. Whatever the cause, the effect is hauntingly beautiful, a natural spacing that suggests trees, in their own slow way, respect each other's boundaries. Life in the canopy is characterized by abundance and diversity. Epiphytes, plants that grow on other plants without parasitizing them, festoon the branches. Orchids, bromeliads, ferns, and mosses create entire hanging gardens. Some bromeliads have rosettes of leaves that hold water, forming tiny aerial ponds that become homes for mosquito larvae, tree frogs, and even small crabs. These miniature aquatic ecosystems, suspended sometimes 100 feet above the ground, demonstrate the jungle's remarkable ability to create habitats in every available niche. The animals of the canopy have adapted to a three-dimensional world. Monkeys swing from branch to branch, their tails often prehensile, serving as a fifth limb. Sloths move with deliberate slowness, their energy-conserving lifestyle perfectly adapted to a diet of leaves. Birds of countless species flit through the leaves, their calls and songs creating a constant, soothing audio backdrop. Insects, more species than we can possibly count, go about their lives among the foliage, pollinating flowers, consuming leaves, being consumed in turn in the endless cycle of jungle life. Below the canopy lies the understory, a darker, more humid realm receiving only 5 to 15% of the sunlight that strikes the top of the canopy. Here, you'll find younger trees waiting for their chance, growing slowly in the shade, ready to shoot upward should a gap open in the canopy above. Shrubs and small trees that are adapted to low light conditions thrive here, along with the saplings of canopy species. The understory is characterized by larger leaves than those found in the sunny canopy above. This is a direct adaptation to low light. Bigger leaves mean more surface area for capturing the precious photons that filter down from above. Many understory leaves are dark green, packed with chlorophyll to maximize light absorption. Some have a reddish tint, from pigments called anthocyanins that may help these plants use light more efficiently by backscattering additional photons through the photosynthetic tissue. The humidity in the understory is remarkable, often approaching 100%. Air movement is minimal. The canopy above blocks wind, creating a still, quiet environment where sounds seem muffled, where movement slows, where time itself appears to move at a different pace. This is the realm of jaguars padding silently along the few trails, of snakes draped motionless over branches, of countless insects and amphibians leading their hidden lives among the leaves. For a human walking through the understory, the experience is profoundly different from being in more open forests. The light is green filtered through countless leaves, creating a submarine quality, as if you're walking through an emerald aquarium. The air is thick, laden with moisture and the scent of growing things, of decay and renewal happening simultaneously. Sounds, bird calls, insect clicks, the occasional rustle of an animal moving through foliage, seem both close and distant, direction sometimes difficult to pinpoint in the acoustic complexity of the understory. Finally, at the bottom of this vertical world lies the forest floor, receiving only 2% of the sunlight that strikes the canopy far above. You might imagine the forest floor as a dark, forbidding place, but in reality, it's surprisingly open and easy to walk through. The famous impenetrable jungle, that tangle of vegetation beloved by adventure movies, typically exists only where light penetrates, along riverbanks, at the edges of clearings, in areas where human activity has disturbed the forest. In intact jungle, the forest floor is relatively clear because so little light reaches the ground that few plants can grow there. What you will find on the forest floor is a thick layer of leaf litter, often several inches deep, composed of dead leaves, fallen branches, and other organic matter in various stages of decomposition. This detritus doesn't accumulate indefinitely, however. In the hot, humid conditions of the jungle, decomposition happens remarkably fast. Fungi, bacteria, termites, and countless other decomposers break down organic matter so efficiently that nutrients are released and recycled within months or even weeks. This rapid recycling is why jungle soils are typically nutrient poor. The nutrients never have a chance to accumulate in the soil because they're captured immediately by the shallow root systems of living plants. The forest floor is home to specialized life forms. Fungi, in spectacular diversity, send up fruiting bodies. Mushrooms of every conceivable color, shape, and size. Some glow with bioluminescence at night, tiny pinpricks of greenish light scattered across the forest floor like fallen stars. Insects scurry through the leaf litter. Ants, beetles, millipedes, and countless others. Larger animals visit the forest floor to search for food, though many prefer the safety of the layers above. Walking on the forest floor feels like stepping back in time. The ancient trees around you may have been seedlings when European explorers first ventured into these forests. The decomposition happening beneath your feet is part of nutrient cycles that have functioned continuously since these forests first evolved. There's a palpable sense of deep time, of processes operating on scales that dwarf human lifespans, of a patient wisdom that comes from enduring for ages while the surface world changes. Each layer of the jungle, from the sunlit emergent crowns to the dim forest floor, contributes to the overall character of these forests. Together, they create a vertical architecture of remarkable stability and complexity, a structure that has proven itself sustainable for millions of years. For those of us seeking peace, there's something deeply reassuring about this layered organization. This proof that complexity need not mean chaos, that diversity can coexist with harmony, that there are indeed structures larger and more enduring than our momentary concerns. The slow dance of growth, plant life, and botanical wonders. If there's one overarching theme that defines jungle plants, it's patience. In a world where we're accustomed to seeing results immediately, where we expect rapid growth and quick returns, jungle plants offer a different paradigm, one of slow, steady accumulation over time, of strategies refined across millions of years, of success measured in centuries rather than seasons. Consider the great emergent trees we discussed earlier. These forest giants don't shoot up overnight. A tree that stands 60 meters tall and 3 meters in diameter has been growing for hundreds, sometimes thousands of years. In the early years, it may have grown mere centimeters annually, biding its time in the understory, waiting for the right conditions. Even after reaching the canopy and accessing direct sunlight, growth remains measured, steady, sustainable. There's no rush because there's no deadline. The tree will be here long after you and I are gone, long after our great-grandchildren are gone, still growing, still adding layers of wood, still reaching upward at its own unhurried pace. This slow growth produces wood of remarkable density and durability. Tropical hardwoods are famous for their strength and resistance to decay, properties that come directly from their patient growth. Each annual growth ring, often barely visible in tropical trees that don't experience sharp seasonal changes, represents a year of slow, meticulous cell construction. The result is wood so dense it sinks in water, wood that can last for centuries even after the tree dies, wood that tropical peoples have used for generations to build structures that endure. But the emergent trees, impressive as they are, represent only one strategy among thousands. The jungle is a botanical wonderland featuring plants that have evolved astonishing adaptations to fill every conceivable niche in the forest ecosystem. Take epiphytes, for example. Those plants that grow perched on the branches of other plants, never touching the soil. There are more than 30,000 species of epiphytes in tropical forests worldwide. Orchids are perhaps the most famous epiphytes, with some 25,000 species, many of them tropical. These orchids have evolved specialized aerial roots that can absorb moisture directly from humid air and specialized tissues that can store water through dry periods. Bromeliads, relatives of the pineapple, are another major group of epiphytes. Many bromeliads have a rosette growth form, with leaves arranged in a circle around a central cup. This cup collects rainwater, creating a miniature aquatic habitat high in the canopy. Some bromeliad pools have been found to contain more than a gallon of water, hosting an entire community of organisms: mosquito larvae, tree frog tadpoles, aquatic insects, even small crabs. The bromeliad benefits from this arrangement by absorbing nutrients from the detritus and waste products that accumulate in its pool. Meanwhile, the animals living in the bromeliad have found a relatively safe nursery for their young, protected from many ground-dwelling predators. The relationship between epiphytes and their host trees is generally not parasitic. The epiphyte doesn't draw nutrients from the tree. It simply uses the tree as a platform to access light and water. In fact, epiphyte-covered branches often live longer than bare branches, possibly because the epiphytes create a more favorable microclimate or provide other subtle benefits. Some trees have evolved special features that seem to encourage epiphyte growth. Rough bark that provides good attachment points, branch architecture that collects organic debris, even specialized structures that capture and hold water. Vines and lianas, woody climbing plants, represent yet another growth strategy. Unable to invest in their own structural support, vines instead use other plants as scaffolding, growing rapidly upward to reach the sunlight while spending minimal resources on thick trunks or branches. Some lianas can extend for hundreds of meters through the canopy, connecting multiple trees, creating aerial highways used by animals moving through the forest. The stems of lianas are marvels of plant engineering. Unlike tree trunks, which need to support their own weight while resisting both compression and lateral forces, liana stems only need tensile strength, resistance to pulling. As a result, liana wood often has a very different internal structure than tree wood, sometimes appearing twisted or rope-like, with specialized tissues that allow flexibility while maintaining strength. This flexibility is crucial. As trees sway in the wind, attached lianas must be able to bend without breaking. Strangler figs represent one of the jungle's most dramatic growth strategies. These plants start life as epiphytes, their seeds deposited high in tree crowns by birds or bats. The seedling sends roots down along the trunk of the host tree, eventually reaching the ground and establishing itself in the soil. Once connected to ground resources, the strangler fig begins growing more vigorously, sending additional roots down the host tree's trunk. These roots eventually fuse together, forming a lattice that gradually encircles and may ultimately kill the host tree. When the host dies and rots away, the strangler fig's roots have become strong enough to stand alone, creating a hollow tree-like structure. Despite their somewhat sinister common name, strangler figs are keystone species in many jungles, producing figs year-round when other trees may not be fruiting, providing crucial food for animals during lean times. Perhaps no jungle plants capture the imagination quite like those that produce bioluminescence. That eerie, ethereal glow visible on some rainforest floors at night. The most common bioluminescent organisms in jungles are fungi, particularly species in the genus Mycena. These mushrooms emit a soft, greenish-white light, often described as resembling foxfire or fairy lights. The light is produced through a chemical reaction involving an enzyme called luciferase acting on a light-emitting molecule called luciferin. Scientists aren't entirely certain why these fungi glow, but leading theories suggest it may attract insects that help disperse the fungal spores, or it may simply be a metabolic byproduct with no specific function. Walking through a jungle on a dark night and encountering these glowing fungi creates an almost magical experience. The lights are subtle, visible only when your eyes have adjusted to the darkness. Scattered across the forest floor, and sometimes dotting fallen logs or tree trunks like scattered stars. The glow is utterly silent, peaceful, requiring nothing from you except observation. There's something profoundly calming about this phenomenon, nature creating light without heat, without sound, without any obvious purpose beyond simply being. In a world where we're surrounded by artificial lights and electronic screens, the gentle glow of bioluminescent fungi reminds us that light can be soft, natural, undemanding. The flowers of jungle plants display remarkable diversity, from tiny blooms barely visible to the naked eye to enormous blossoms a meter across. Many jungle flowers have evolved bright colors and strong fragrances to attract pollinators in the dim forest interior where visual signals might otherwise be missed. Some flowers bloom for just a single day or even a single night, while others remain open for weeks. Some smell sweet and pleasant to human noses. Others smell of rotting meat, having evolved to attract carrion flies and beetles as pollinators. One of the largest flowers in the world, Rafflesia arnoldii, grows in the jungles of Southeast Asia. This extraordinary plant is a parasite, growing inside vines with no leaves, stems, or roots of its own, emerging only when it's time to flower. The bloom can measure up to a meter in diameter and weigh 15 pounds, making it not just the largest single flower but also one of the heaviest. It smells strongly of decaying flesh, earning it the nickname corpse flower, despite or perhaps because of this unpleasant odor. Rafflesia has become a symbol of the jungle's ability to evolve unconventional solutions, to thrive through strategies that might seem bizarre to us, but that work perfectly within the jungle's complex web of relationships. The patience required for plant reproduction in the jungle is remarkable. Some trees flower only once every few years. Others may wait decades between flowering events. Bamboo, though not typically thought of as a jungle plant, grows in many tropical forests and displays one of nature's most extreme reproductive strategies. Some bamboo species grow vegetatively for decades, 50, 80, even over 100 years, and then, across an entire region, all individuals of that species flower simultaneously, produce seed, and die. The advantage of this strategy is thought to be predator satiation. By producing an enormous amount of seed all at once, the bamboo ensures that seed-eating animals cannot possibly consume all of it, guaranteeing that some seeds will survive to germinate. The leaves of jungle plants are studies in elegant engineering. In the heavy rainfall that characterizes these forests, water accumulation on leaves could promote the growth of algae and fungi that might block photosynthesis. To prevent this, many jungle leaves have evolved drip tips, elongated, pointed leaf tips that channel water off the leaf surface quickly and efficiently. Watch a jungle leaf in the rain and you'll see water streaming off that drip tip in a steady rivulet, the leaf shedding water almost as fast as it arrives. This simple adaptation, refined over millions of years of evolution, exemplifies the quiet elegance of jungle life, finding simple solutions to complex problems, achieving efficiency through form rather than force. The waxy cuticle on many jungle leaves serves multiple purposes. It prevents excessive water loss during brief dry periods, protects against pathogens, provides a barrier against herbivorous insects, and helps keep the leaf clean by causing water to bead up and roll off, carrying dirt and debris with it. This self-cleaning property has inspired human engineers, attempting to create self-cleaning surfaces for everything from solar panels to building facades. Another example of how jungle plants have already solved problems that we're only now beginning to appreciate. In contemplating jungle plant life, we're confronted with timescales that dwarf human experience. A single tree might have germinated before the Roman Empire, grown through the Middle Ages, reached maturity during the Age of Exploration, and continue living into our present day. The fungal networks we'll discuss later may be even older, potentially millennia in age. This deep time perspective is humbling and oddly comforting. Our individual concerns, however pressing they may feel, are but moments in the forest's long story, brief ripples on a very slow-moving stream. Gentle giants, the calm creatures of the jungle. When most people think of jungle animals, they often imagine dangerous predators, venomous snakes, or fierce competition for survival. While these elements certainly exist, some of the jungle's most remarkable inhabitants are creatures that embody a different strategy entirely, one of slowness, patience, and minimal energy expenditure. These animals teach us that success in nature doesn't always require aggression or speed. Sometimes the most effective approach is simply to move through life calmly, deliberately, and with supreme efficiency. The sloth is perhaps the ultimate embodiment of this philosophy. Found in the forests of Central and South America, sloths have achieved fame precisely for their slowness. At top speed, a sloth can cover about 1 meter every 1.5 seconds, roughly 1.5 miles per hour. Most of the time, they move even more slowly than this or don't move at all, hanging motionless from branches for hours on end. This extreme slowness isn't laziness. It's a carefully evolved strategy that has allowed sloths to survive for millions of years. Sloths have the slowest metabolic rate of any non-hibernating mammal. Their metabolism is only 40 to 45% of what you'd expect for an animal of their size. This remarkably slow metabolism means they need very little food, only about 100 to 150 calories per day, roughly equivalent to a single banana for you or me. Because they need so little energy, sloths can survive on a diet of leaves, which are abundant but provide relatively few calories and are difficult to digest. The sloth's digestive system is adapted to this leafy diet in fascinating ways. Food moves through a sloth's digestive tract extremely slowly, taking up to 30 days to fully digest a single meal. During this time, bacteria in the sloth's multi-chambered stomach break down the tough cellulose in leaves, extracting every possible nutrient. This slow digestion means a sloth's stomach and intestines can account for up to 1/3 of its body weight. Imagine walking around with an additional 50 pounds or so in your belly, and you'll understand one reason why sloths move so slowly. Interestingly, recent research has revealed that wild sloths sleep far less than previously thought. Earlier studies, conducted on captive sloths, suggested these animals slept 15 to 20 hours per day. However, research using tiny backpack sensors on wild sloths has shown they actually sleep only 9 to 10 hours per day, about the same as humans. The rest of the time, they're in a state researchers call active rest, where they're awake but completely motionless with their eyes often closed. This energy-conserving behavior allows sloths to minimize caloric expenditure while remaining alert to their surroundings. Sloth's fur hosts an entire ecosystem. The coarse fur contains microscopic cracks that trap moisture, creating a perfect environment for algae and fungi. Over 80 different species of algae and fungi have been found living in sloth fur, giving the fur a characteristic greenish tint that provides excellent camouflage in the forest canopy. The fur also hosts moths. Sloth moths, which are species that live nowhere else except in sloth fur. When a sloth descends to the forest floor for its weekly defecation, the moths lay their eggs in the dung. The eggs hatch, the larvae develop in the dung, pupate, emerge as adults, and fly up into the canopy to find a new sloth host. Scientists believe the nutrients from these moths and the algae they help cultivate may provide sloths with additional nutrition absorbed through grooming or through their skin. Sloths' calm demeanor extends to their sleep patterns. Research shows that while sloths spend between 9 and 10 hours per day sleeping, they don't do so in one long continuous stretch. Instead, their sleep is highly fragmented, with multiple episodes of both light and deep sleep throughout day and night. They have favorite sleeping spots they return to repeatedly, interspersed with periods of slow movement and feeding. This polyphasic sleep pattern, multiple sleep periods throughout the day and night, is similar to how many animals sleep in nature, quite different from the single long sleep period humans typically experience. The sloth's slowness is its defense. Predators like harpy eagles, jaguars, and ocelots hunt by detecting movement. A sloth hanging motionless or moving at glacial speed simply doesn't trigger the hunting response the way a fleeing animal would. Even a sloth's face seems designed for tranquility. The permanent gentle smile created by the arrangement of its facial features, the calm, slow blinking eyes, the overall expression of contentment. Looking at a sloth, you can't help but feel a sense of peace, as if this animal has discovered some fundamental secret about life that we frantic humans have forgotten. Other jungle animals, while not quite as extreme as sloths, nonetheless exhibit a calm, unhurried approach to life. The three-toed sloth's close relatives, anteaters, move with deliberate care through the forest, using their powerful claws to tear open termite mounds and ant nests. An anteater can extend its tongue up to 2 feet long, flicking it in and out of insect colonies up to 160 times per minute to capture prey on its sticky surface. Yet despite this rapid tongue movement, the overall demeanor of an anteater is one of peaceful focus, of an animal utterly absorbed in the simple task of feeding, undistracted by the larger world around it. Tapirs, large herbivorous mammals found in both South American and Southeast Asian jungles, spend much of their time moving slowly through the forest understory, browsing on leaves, fruits, and other vegetation. They're shy, generally solitary creatures that prefer to avoid confrontation. Tapirs are excellent swimmers and spend considerable time in water, where they move with languid grace, sometimes staying submerged for several minutes at a time. Watching a tapir move through a jungle stream, paddling gently, occasionally submerging completely, then resurfacing with water streaming from its distinctive flexible snout, you witness an animal completely at ease, unhurried, content with its moment-to-moment existence. Gentle primates inhabit many jungles, species that prioritize social bonds and peaceful coexistence over aggression. The Bornean orangutan, one of humanity's closest relatives, spends most of its life high in the canopy, moving through the trees with surprising delicacy for such a large animal. Adult males can weigh over 200 pounds. Orangutans are largely solitary, spending long periods alone, seemingly content with their own company. Mothers care for their young for several years, teaching them everything they need to know about the forest through patient demonstration. An orangutan mother showing her infant which fruits are good to eat, how to build a sleeping nest from branches, or where to find water demonstrates a kind of gentle pedagogy that seems almost meditative in its unhurried thoroughness. Even some of the jungle's larger predators show remarkable patience and calm. The jaguar, the Amazon's apex predator, hunts with stealth and patience rather than speed. A jaguar might spend hours moving silently through the forest, investigating scent trails, listening for prey, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. When it does attack, the action is brief, decisive, and then it's over. The jaguar returns to a state of calm, often dragging its prey to a safe location and then resting for extended periods while digesting its meal. There's no wasted energy, no unnecessary movement, just the minimum effort required to survive, followed by long periods of rest. Birds also demonstrate the jungle's capacity for calm. While some species are active and noisy, others embody tranquility. The patoo, a nocturnal bird found in Central and South America, spends its days perched motionless on a tree branch, its cryptic plumage making it nearly indistinguishable from the wood itself. A patoo can remain frozen in position for hours, so still that you could walk right past without noticing it. At night, it becomes active, flying out to catch insects, but even its hunting is characterized by short flights from a perch rather than sustained aerial pursuit. Butterflies drift through shafts of sunlight in the understory, moving from flower to flower with a gentle, bobbing flight that seems utterly without urgency. The morpho butterfly, with its iridescent blue wings, creates flashes of brilliant color as it flies, yet its actual movement is slow and wandering. These butterflies often live several weeks as adults, spending their days feeding on rotting fruit on the forest floor or sipping minerals from muddy riverbanks, their wings slowly opening and closing in the dappled light. Many jungle frogs lead remarkably sedentary lives. Some species of poison dart frogs, despite their bright warning coloration, spend most of their time sitting motionless on leaves, waiting for small insects to wander within striking distance. The frogs are so motionless that algae sometimes grows on their skin, providing additional camouflage. When they do move, it's often just a short hop to a nearby location, then back to stillness. The sleep patterns of jungle animals are fascinating in their diversity. Most jungle mammals are crepuscular, meaning they're most active during dawn and dusk, resting during the heat of midday and the darkness of night. This pattern makes perfect sense in the jungle climate, where midday temperatures can be oppressive and nighttime brings its own challenges. By being active during the transitional periods of dawn and dusk, animals avoid temperature extremes while still having enough light to navigate the forest safely. Many jungle animals create sleeping sites with remarkable care. Orangutans build fresh sleeping nests every night, weaving branches together to create a comfortable platform, sometimes even adding a roof of leaves if rain threatens. Chimpanzees engage in similar behavior. This nest-building ritual, performed daily, becomes a kind of meditation, a familiar routine that signals the transition from activity to rest, from engagement with the world to withdrawal into sleep. The time spent selecting the right location, gathering appropriate branches, testing the construction for comfort and stability. All of this creates a pre-sleep routine that helps prepare the animal's mind and body for rest. Some animals sleep in groups, finding safety and comfort in numbers. Squirrel monkeys, small primates found in South American jungles, sleep huddled together on branches, their bodies intertwined, each individual both giving and receiving warmth and security. The group's collective awareness means that while each individual sleeps, the group as a whole remains somewhat alert, any disturbance likely to wake at least a few individuals who can then alert the others. This cooperative sleeping arrangement reduces each individual's vigilance burden, allowing for deeper, more restorative sleep. Other species prefer solitary sleeping arrangements. Tree kangaroos in New Guinea jungles sleep alone, wedged into tree forks where their bodies are supported on multiple sides, allowing their muscles to fully relax. The tree kangaroo's sleep position is remarkably similar to that of human infants being held. The sense of being cradled and supported on multiple sides seems to be universally comforting across species. The jungle's rhythm influences animal sleep in subtle ways. Because temperature varies little and day length changes minimally near the equator, many jungle animals don't experience the sharp seasonal variations in sleep duration seen in temperate species. Instead, their sleep patterns remain relatively constant year-round, governed more by immediate conditions like rainfall or food availability than by deep seasonal cycles. This consistency creates a stable backdrop against which animals can maintain regular patterns, reducing the stress that comes from constantly adapting to changing conditions. Even insects exhibit fascinating sleep-like states. Butterflies and moths rest at night with wings folded, often returning to the same resting spot night after night. Bees, though not particularly common in the dense jungle interior, show clear sleep behaviors when they do occur there, becoming motionless with drooping antennae during nighttime hours. Dragonflies, beautiful predators of the jungle's clearings and streams, rest on vegetation at night, their wings spread, bodies still, waiting for the sun's warmth to reactivate them in the morning. The presence of these calm, unhurried creatures throughout the jungle creates an atmosphere of peace. Yes, there are predators and prey, hunters and hunted, but even these relationships play out at the jungle's measured pace. A sloth may be eaten by a harpy eagle, but the sloth spent its life in tranquil contemplation, moving slowly through the canopy, doing exactly what evolution designed it to do. The eagle must eat, but it too spends most of its time perched quietly, scanning the forest, patient and still. There's no malice in the relationship, no suffering beyond what's necessary. Just the ancient pattern of energy flowing through the ecosystem, one life supporting another in an endless cycle that has no beginning or end. For those of us seeking sleep and peace, these gentle giants of the jungle offer important lessons. They show us that slowness is not weakness but strategy, that patience yields its own rewards, that constant frantic activity is not the only path to survival. They demonstrate that rest is not wasted time but essential restoration, that finding comfortable sleeping arrangements matters, that routines can bring comfort. They prove that in a complex, challenging world, calm persistence often triumphs over aggressive haste. The chemistry of tranquility, air quality, and oxygen production. There's a reason why simply being in a forest makes us feel better. Beyond the beauty and the peace, beyond the sounds and the sights, Forests affect us at a chemical level, releasing compounds into the air that interact with our bodies and minds in measurable, beneficial ways. The jungle, with its incredible density of plant life, creates an atmosphere that's not just breathable but actively health-promoting. A green pharmacy that dispenses its medicine through every breath we take. Let's start with the basics: oxygen. Through photosynthesis, plants absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen. This is taught in elementary school science classes, but the scale at which tropical jungles perform this service is breathtaking. The Amazon rainforest alone produces about 6% of the world's oxygen, earning it the nickname the lungs of the earth. While this figure is sometimes disputed by scientists who point out that the ocean's phytoplankton actually produces more oxygen, the Amazon's contribution remains enormous. Somewhere between 20 and 25 billion tons of oxygen released into the atmosphere every year. But oxygen production is only part of the story. Plants also release compounds called phytoncides, natural oils that are part of a plant's defense system against bacteria, fungi, and insects. When you walk through a forest and breathe deeply, you're inhaling these phytoncides. Research, particularly extensive studies conducted in Japan and South Korea, has demonstrated that exposure to phytoncides can have remarkable health benefits. The practice of forest bathing, or shinrin-yoku as it's called in Japan, has been scientifically validated as a therapeutic practice. Studies show that spending time in forests where phytoncide concentrations are high can lower blood pressure, reduce stress hormone levels, improve immune function, and enhance overall feelings of well-being. The mechanism appears to involve both psychological factors, the inherent peace of being in nature, and physiological ones, the direct biochemical effects of inhaling plant compounds. Some of the most common phytoncides are terpenes, organic compounds that give plants their characteristic scents. Alpha-pinene and beta-pinene, found in coniferous trees and many tropical plants, smell of pine and have been shown to have anti-inflammatory and bronchodilating effects. They literally help open your airways. Limonene, which smells citrusy, has mood-elevating properties. D-limonene has been studied for its potential anti-cancer properties. These aren't folk remedies or wishful thinking. These are measurable biochemical effects documented in peer-reviewed scientific literature. The jungle produces these compounds in remarkable quantities. With more plant species per hectare than almost any other ecosystem on Earth, a tropical jungle creates a complex cocktail of phytoncides, terpenes, and other plant volatiles. Walking through a jungle, you're bathed in this chemical symphony. Pinenes from the trees, esters from ripe fruits, complex alcohols from flowers, all mixing and mingling in the humid air. Your olfactory system detects these compounds consciously as scents, but your body also processes them in ways you're not aware of, your immune system responding, your stress hormones adjusting, your nervous system shifting from sympathetic activation toward parasympathetic calm. The oxygen produced by jungle plants is extraordinarily fresh. Unlike the air in cities, which may contain the products of many previous breath cycles, the oxygen pouring from jungle leaves has just been created moments before. It's never been breathed by anyone else, never been through an industrial process, never been anywhere except in the atmosphere and inside the plant. There's something deeply satisfying about breathing such fresh air, even if the difference isn't consciously perceptible. The carbon dioxide levels in the jungle are also interesting. During the day, when photosynthesis is occurring, plants absorb CO2 from the air, reducing its concentration. At night, when photosynthesis stops but respiration continues, plants release CO2, increasing its concentration. Additionally, the decomposition happening on the forest floor releases CO2 continuously. The net result is that CO2 levels in the jungle fluctuate with a daily rhythm, slightly higher at night and lower during the day. This fluctuation is completely natural and harmless. Indeed, humans evolved in environments with these kinds of variations. The humidity of jungle air deserves special mention. At 95 to 100% relative humidity, the air in a jungle is nearly saturated with moisture. For people from dry climates, this can initially feel oppressive, but there's also something deeply comforting about it. Your respiratory passages, usually working to humidify the relatively dry air we typically breathe, can relax. Your skin doesn't dry out. Your eyes don't feel scratchy. Everything feels lubricated, smooth, soft. This humidity also affects how we perceive temperature. At 100% humidity, sweat doesn't evaporate. It can't because the air is already holding all the moisture it can. This means the cooling mechanism of sweating becomes less effective, which is why humid heat feels more intense than dry heat at the same temperature. However, in the shade of the jungle, where temperatures are moderate and air movement is minimal, this humidity creates a cocoon-like environment, stable and unchanging, neither too hot nor too cold, just consistently, soothingly there. The jungle air carries the scent of life itself. It's not a single smell, but a complex blend that changes with time of day, weather, season, and location. In the morning, you might smell the fruity sweetness of flowers opening to attract pollinators. At midday, the green, almost spicy scent of sun-warmed leaves dominates. In the afternoon, the rain releases petrichor, that distinctive earthy smell produced when rain falls on dry soil. Though in the jungle, the soil is rarely dry, so the petrichor is mixed with the more complex organic scents of wet leaves, wet wood, wet earth. At night, different flowers open, and the air might carry hints of jasmine-like sweetness or the musky scent of night-blooming vines. There's also the subtle but pervasive smell of decomposition. This isn't the unpleasant odor of rot, but rather the rich, earthy smell of organic matter being recycled, of nutrients being released, of the endless cycle of death and renewal that sustains the forest. Some describe it as smelling of mushrooms, others of wet wood or fresh soil. Whatever metaphor you prefer, it's a smell that speaks to something deep in our evolutionary past, reminding us at a level below consciousness that we are animals who evolved in environments exactly like this, that this smell is, in some fundamental way, the smell of home. The negative ion concentration in jungle air is also noteworthy. Negative ions, oxygen molecules that have gained an extra electron, are created naturally by moving water, particularly waterfalls and rain, and by plant photosynthesis. The jungle, with its frequent rain and enormous biomass, produces negative ions in abundance. While the science on negative ions is still developing and some claims about their benefits are exaggerated, there is evidence that high negative ion concentrations may improve mood and increase alertness. More importantly, negative ions cause airborne particles to clump together and fall out of the air, essentially cleaning the atmosphere. This is why the air in forests often feels so fresh and clean, because it literally is clean, scrubbed by natural processes that have been operating for millions of years. Breathing jungle air is an experience in mindfulness. Each breath carries information, scents that tell you what plants are flowering, whether rain has recently fallen, what time of day it is. Each breath brings oxygen, phytoncides, terpenes, moisture, negative ions, all entering your lungs and being distributed throughout your body via your bloodstream. Your body processes these chemicals, responds to them, adjusts because of them. You are not separate from the jungle when you breathe its air. You are temporarily part of it, participating in its cycles, benefiting from its generosity. For someone seeking to fall asleep, imagining breathing jungle air can be deeply relaxing. Picture the cool, moist air entering your nostrils, flowing down your throat, filling your lungs. Imagine you can feel the oxygen being absorbed into your bloodstream, the phytoncides triggering subtle changes in your immune system, the humidity soothing your respiratory passages. Picture the air you exhale, slightly warmed, carrying CO2 that plants will use to build new leaves tomorrow. You're part of the cycle, contributing to it, sustained by it. This is not just imagination. It's biological reality, the fundamental exchange that all breathing creatures share with the plant world. And in recognizing that reality, in feeling your participation in something so much larger and older than yourself, there comes a profound sense of peace. Ancient rhythms, time scales, and geological patience. One of the most profound aspects of jungle ecosystems is their age. We're not talking about decades or even centuries, but geological timescales that challenge human comprehension. The Amazon rainforest is estimated to have existed in some form for at least 55 million years, first appearing during the Eocene epoch when the world was warmer and wetter than it is today. Think about that for a moment. 55 million years. When the Amazon began, the dinosaurs had been extinct for only 10 million years. The earliest human ancestors wouldn't appear for another 50 million years. The Daintree rainforest in Australia is even older, with estimates suggesting it has existed continuously for at least 135 million years, possibly as long as 180 million years. This means the Daintree is not just older than human civilization, older than the human species, older than all primates and mammals as we know them. It's older than flowering plants themselves. The Daintree existed when dinosaurs walked the earth, and it has persisted through every major climate change, every asteroid impact, every ice age and warming period since then. It is, in a very real sense, a living time capsule, a window into Earth's deep past. Consider what it means for an ecosystem to persist for that long. The individual trees come and go. Even the oldest trees live only a few centuries or perhaps millennia. The individual species evolve, new ones arising, old ones going extinct. Rivers change course, mountains slowly erode, sea levels rise and fall. Yet the forest itself endures, maintaining its essential character through unimaginable spans of time. It's a pattern that persists while its components change, a process that continues while the participants cycle through. This persistence offers a different perspective on stability. We often think of stability as things staying the same, but the jungle shows us that true stability lies not in permanence of components, but in persistence of process. The cycle of growth, death, and decomposition continues. The water cycle persists. Energy flows from sun to plant to herbivore to predator to decomposer and back to soil, over and over, the same basic pattern repeated trillions upon trillions of times across millions of years. The soil beneath the jungle holds its own ancient stories. Soil scientists studying jungle soils have found evidence of repeated cycles of forest growth and clearance, not by humans but by natural climate fluctuations over thousands of years. During ice ages, when the Earth's climate cooled and dried, some jungles shrank to small refugia, isolated patches where conditions remained suitable. When the ice retreated and climate warmed and moistened again, the jungles expanded from these refugia, spreading back across the land. This has happened multiple times over the past million years, each cycle leaving subtle traces in the soil chemistry and structure. Some of the trees in these ancient forests are themselves remarkably old. While most jungle trees live a few centuries at most, some species can survive much longer. The Australian red cedar can live over 2,000 years. Some of the strangler figs in Southeast Asia are believed to be over 800 years old. These individual organisms have stood in the same spot, growing imperceptibly, weathering countless storms, hosting thousands of generations of epiphytes and animals, for time periods that encompass all of recorded human history and more. The evolutionary processes operating in jungles work on timescales even longer than individual lifespans. The relationship between a specific orchid and the specific insect that pollinates it may have been evolving for millions of years, each species subtly influencing the evolution of the other. The orchid's flower shape, color, and scent have evolved to attract this particular pollinator. The pollinator's body shape, behavior, and sensory capabilities have evolved to exploit this particular flower. Neither can survive without the other, but this mutual dependency didn't arise overnight. It's the product of countless generations, extending back potentially to the time when the first flowering plants evolved. These deep evolutionary relationships create a stability of their own. Because species have co-evolved for so long, they fit together with exquisite precision. The ecosystem isn't just a collection of species that happen to live in the same place. It's a tightly integrated network of dependencies and interactions, each species playing roles that support many others. This integration makes the system resistant to change, not because nothing ever changes, but because the changes that do occur are absorbed and integrated into existing patterns rather than destroying them. Geologically, the continents on which these jungles stand have their own ancient histories. South America and Africa were once joined in the supercontinent Gondwana, which began breaking apart about 180 million years ago. When they separated, the ancestral forests on each continent were divided, and from that point they evolved independently. This is why South American and African jungles, while similar in general structure and climate, have completely different species. The evolutionary processes that shaped them have been operating independently for the entire time since the continents split. The Amazon basin itself is relatively young in geological terms, having formed perhaps 10 to 15 million years ago when the Andes Mountains rose along South America's western edge. Before the Andes formed, rivers in what is now the Amazon basin flowed westward into the Pacific Ocean. When the mountains rose, they blocked this drainage and water began accumulating, eventually finding a new outlet to the east through what is now the mouth of the Amazon. The formation of this basin created new habitats, new opportunities for evolution, contributing to the Amazon's extraordinary biodiversity. The Congo Basin has a similar story, its current configuration determined by geological events millions of years ago. Southeast Asian rainforests occupy ancient, stable land that has experienced less dramatic geological upheaval, allowing species to evolve and diversify over long, relatively stable periods. Each of these great jungle regions tells a story written in stone and soil, in genes and fossils, in the distribution of species and the chemistry of the earth. These timescales can be difficult to grasp intuitively. We're used to measuring time in days, months, years, perhaps a human lifetime if we're thinking long-term. But 1,000,000 years, 10 million, 100 million, these numbers are so large they lose meaning. Perhaps it helps to think of them in terms of generations. If a tree generation is roughly 100 years, the time from seed to mature tree, then 10 million years represents 100,000 tree generations. 100,000 iterations of the cycle of seed, germination, growth, reproduction, death. 100,000 opportunities for evolution to test new variations, to select for success, to gradually shape each species into its current form. Or think of it in terms of rain. If a location in the Amazon receives 2,300 millimeters of rain per year, over 1 million years that's 2,300 kilometers of rain, about the distance from New York to Denver. That's an incomprehensible amount of water, all of it cycling through the forest, shaping the soil, feeding the plants, eroding the rock, carrying nutrients, supporting life over and over and over again. What does this deep time teach us? Perhaps it's a matter of perspective. Our personal problems, however real and difficult they may be, play out on scales of days, weeks, months, at most years. Against the background of a forest that has existed for 55 million years, that will likely exist for millions more if we protect it, our troubles seem smaller, more manageable, less overwhelming. This isn't to dismiss personal suffering. Pain is real regardless of time scale. But there's comfort in knowing that life, in its larger patterns, continues regardless of our individual concerns. The cycles persist. The rain falls. The trees grow. And we are part of that larger pattern, temporary participants in processes that vastly predate us and will vastly outlast us. There's also comfort in the patience these timescales imply. Evolution doesn't rush. Geological processes don't hurry. The jungle has been here for millions of years and doesn't need to be anywhere else tomorrow. This patience, this willingness to work on nature's timescale rather than demanding immediate results, is perhaps something we can learn from. Not everything needs to happen quickly. Some things, the important things, take time to develop, to mature, to reach their full expression. And that's okay. That's how it should be. For someone drifting towards sleep, contemplating these vast timescales can help quiet an overactive mind. Instead of replaying the day's events or worrying about tomorrow's obligations, you can imagine the jungle, persisting through deep time, utterly indifferent to daily concerns, operating on rhythms that make our fears and worries seem like ripples on an ocean. You can picture yourself as one small part of these ancient cycles, here for a moment, participating in processes larger than yourself, then passing on while the processes continue. There's peace in that recognition, in accepting our temporary nature, in understanding that the universe doesn't require us to solve everything tonight. The problems will wait. The cycles will continue. And for now, you can rest. The network beneath, mycorrhizal connections and underground communication. Beneath your feet in a jungle, invisible to casual observation, exists one of nature's most sophisticated networks. A vast web of fungal threads connecting individual trees into what some scientists call a superorganism, allowing communication and resource sharing across the entire forest ecosystem. This underground internet, formed by mycorrhizal fungi, may be one of the most important but least appreciated aspects of jungle ecology. Mycorrhizae, from Greek words meaning fungus root, are symbiotic associations between fungi and plant roots. The relationship is ancient, dating back at least 400 million years to when the first plants began colonizing land. In fact, some scientists believe that this fungal partnership was essential for plants to successfully transition from aquatic to terrestrial environments. The fungi provided these pioneering plants with water and nutrients in exchange for carbohydrates the plants produced through photosynthesis. In modern jungles, these relationships have evolved into systems of remarkable complexity and sophistication. The fungus colonizes the tree's roots, sometimes growing inside the root cells themselves, sometimes wrapping around them in a sheath. From these contact points, the fungus sends out hyphae, threads finer than the finest human hair, that spread through the soil. A single teaspoon of jungle soil might contain several miles of these fungal threads, creating a network of almost unimaginable density. Through this network, the fungus provides the tree with water and nutrients, particularly phosphorus and nitrogen, which the fine fungal threads can access in soil crevices too small for roots to penetrate. In exchange, the tree provides the fungus with sugars produced through photosynthesis. Neither partner could thrive without the other. The fungus lacks chlorophyll and cannot produce its own food. The tree, while it could theoretically survive alone, would grow far more slowly and be much more vulnerable to drought and nutrient deficiency. But here's where it becomes truly fascinating. These fungal networks don't just connect one tree to its fungal partner. The threads from one tree's fungal associate connect with threads from neighboring trees' associates, creating a vast interconnected web that can link dozens, hundreds, even thousands of individual trees of different species into a single network. And through this network, resources can flow. Research pioneered by forest ecologists has demonstrated that trees can share resources through these fungal networks. A tree growing in a sunny patch with access to abundant light for photosynthesis might produce more sugar than it needs and share the excess through the fungal network with trees growing in shade. In return, these shaded trees might share other resources they have access to. When a tree is attacked by insects, it can send chemical warning signals through the fungal network, allowing neighboring trees to activate their defense systems before the insects arrive. Mother trees, large, old individuals that may have hundreds of fungal connections, appear to play special roles in these networks, acting somewhat like hub airports in an airline network. These mother trees can preferentially share resources with their own offspring, essentially nurturing their young through the underground network. They can also redistribute resources across the forest, taking excess from trees in favorable locations and sharing it with trees struggling in less favorable spots. The fungal network also functions as a communication system. When a tree is attacked by insects or infected by pathogens, it produces defensive chemicals. Some of these chemicals travel through the fungal network to neighboring trees, triggering them to produce their own defensive compounds before they're actually attacked. This early warning system allows trees to defend themselves more effectively, reducing damage and improving survival. Recent research has revealed even more sophisticated interactions. Different fungal species appear to form different networks with different properties. Some are more efficient at transporting water, others better at transporting nutrients. Some connect trees of a single species. Others can bridge between species. Some appear to be cooperative, facilitating mutual benefit between connected trees. Others might be competitive, with more parasitic fungi exploiting their plant partners. The underground ecosystem is not simple. It's as complex and diverse as the above-ground ecosystem we can see. The size and age of these fungal networks can be staggering. Some fungal individuals are thought to be among the largest organisms on Earth. While they're difficult to map because they're underground and their threads are microscopic, genetic studies have identified individual fungi that extend across many acres, possibly even square miles. Some may be thousands of years old, persisting even as the trees they connect live and die, maintaining continuity in the forest ecosystem across centuries. In the jungle specifically, these networks face unique challenges and show special adaptations. Jungle soils are often poor in nutrients, with most nutrients locked up in living biomass rather than soil. The fungal networks in jungles must be especially efficient at capturing and distributing nutrients. Some jungle fungi can break down complex organic compounds that other organisms cannot digest, accessing nutrients that would otherwise be unavailable. Others can extract nutrients from rock itself, slowly weathering minerals through secreted acids. The mycorrhizal networks also contribute to soil structure. The fungal threads bind soil particles together, creating aggregates that resist erosion, improve water infiltration, and create spaces for air and water movement through the soil. In heavy jungle rains, this soil binding by fungi is crucial for preventing massive erosion that would wash away the thin layer of topsoil on which the forest depends. Carbon storage is another crucial function of these fungal networks. The fungi store carbon in their biomass and in various compounds they produce and secrete into the soil. Some estimates suggest that mycorrhizal fungi may store as much carbon globally as is contained in all the world's tropical forests combined. This makes these invisible underground networks critical players in Earth's climate system, helping to regulate atmospheric carbon dioxide concentrations. For someone contemplating these networks while drifting towards sleep, there's something deeply comforting about the idea of connection and cooperation they represent. We often think of nature as competitive, dominated by struggle and survival of the fittest. And competition certainly exists. But these fungal networks reveal another face of nature, one of cooperation, resource sharing, communication, and mutual support. The trees in a forest aren't isolated individuals. They're part of a community, connected by invisible threads, supporting each other, sharing resources, warning each other of danger. There's a metaphor here for human life as well. We too are connected in networks, some visible, some invisible networks of family, friendship, community, culture, economics. Like trees sharing resources through fungal networks, we share information, support, resources through our social networks. Like mother trees nurturing their offspring, we care for our children and each other. Like trees warning each other of danger, we communicate about threats and challenges. We are not separate, isolated individuals any more than trees are. We're all part of larger wholes, larger patterns, and we thrive or struggle partly based on the quality of our connections. The underground network also reminds us that much of what's important is invisible. We see the magnificent trees, the colorful birds, the dramatic plants and animals. But beneath it all, invisible to our eyes, lies this vast network that makes it all possible, that connects everything, that ensures the forest functions as an integrated whole rather than a collection of competing individuals. Similarly, in our own lives, much of what matters most, love, trust, understanding, shared values, is invisible, known only through its effects. As you imagine this vast network spreading through jungle soil, picture the microscopic threads connecting tree to tree. Imagine resources flowing through these connections. Picture chemical signals traveling like messages through an organic internet. Consider that this network has functioned for thousands, perhaps millions of years, connecting generation after generation of trees, persisting while individual trees live and die, maintaining the forest as a coherent ecosystem across time. There's something eternal about it, something that transcends individual existence, and in contemplating that transcendence, we might find perspective on our own temporary troubles, and peace in knowing we too are part of larger networks that will persist beyond our individual span. Sounds of serenity, the acoustic landscape. The jungle is never silent. Even in the deepest night, even during the stillest afternoon, there are always sounds. A constant acoustic tapestry woven from countless individual voices, each one contributing to an overall effect that paradoxically reads to the human ear as peaceful, despite the continuous activity it represents. The acoustic signature of a jungle is distinctive and complex. Unlike the silence of a desert or the simple rustle of wind through grassland, the jungle produces what scientists call a rich acoustic environment or soundscape. Sound distributed across multiple frequency ranges, from the deep bass of distant thunder to the high-pitched chirps of insects and tree frogs, with everything in between filled by bird calls, monkey vocalizations, rustling leaves, and falling rain. This complexity is actually one reason why jungle sounds can be so relaxing. The human auditory system evolved in environments similar to modern jungles. Our ancestors lived in forests, surrounded by the constant sounds of nature. Our brains are wired to find these natural soundscapes comforting. Research has shown that exposure to natural sounds can reduce stress, lower blood pressure, and improve mood. One study found that listening to natural sounds improved test subjects' concentration and cognitive performance compared to listening to urban sounds or silence. Part of this effect may be because natural sounds engage our attention in a very gentle way that researchers call soft fascination. Unlike the hard fascination of dramatic events or engaging entertainment that demands our full attention, soft fascination holds our attention lightly, preventing our minds from wandering to stressful thoughts without requiring effortful focus. This gentle engagement is perfect for relaxation and sleep. It gives the mind something to do besides worry, but doesn't stimulate it enough to prevent sleep. The specific sounds of the jungle vary tremendously depending on location, time of day, season, and weather. The dawn chorus in a jungle is one of nature's most spectacular acoustic events. As darkness begins to fade, birds begin to sing, each species having its preferred time to vocalize. The layering of these songs creates a crescendo that peaks around sunrise, then gradually diminishes as the day progresses. The purpose of this dawn chorus is partly territorial. Birds announcing their presence and claiming their space, and partly courtship, with males singing to attract mates or reinforce pair bonds. But even this competitive, functional behavior produces sounds that human listeners find beautiful and calming. The brain doesn't need to know that a particular song is a territorial declaration to find it melodious. The aesthetic pleasure we derive from birdsong is real, regardless of the song's evolutionary purpose. Insects contribute perhaps the largest component of jungle soundscapes, particularly at night. Cicadas produce their characteristic buzzing calls, often in waves that rise and fall with rhythmic regularity. Tree crickets and katydids add their voices, creating layers of sound at different pitches and rhythms. Some insects produce sounds at such high frequencies that they're barely audible to human ears. We hear them as presence rather than distinct tones, contributing to the overall texture of the soundscape without being individually identifiable. The calls of tree frogs create some of the jungle's most characteristic sounds. Some species produce deep croaks. Others make clicking sounds. Still others create high-pitched peeps. During breeding season, the calls can be nearly continuous, a constant background noise that, rather than being disturbing, becomes a kind of acoustic wallpaper so constant that you cease to consciously notice it. This demonstrates an important principle. Repetitive natural sounds don't agitate the nervous system the way repetitive artificial sounds do. A dripping faucet drives us crazy, but dripping rain is soothing. A car alarm is infuriating, but the calls of dozens of frogs blends into peaceful background. The reason for this difference may lie in predictability and meaning. Artificial repetitive sounds often signal something wrong. A malfunction, an alert, a problem requiring attention. Our nervous system responds with vigilance and stress. Natural repetitive sounds, by contrast, signal that everything is normal. The rain falls, the frogs call, the insects buzz, all exactly as they should. There's no threat implied, no action required, just the comfortable knowledge that nature is proceeding as expected. Rain on jungle leaves creates its own distinctive sound, different from rain on rooftops or pavement. Each leaf, depending on its size, shape, and position, produces a slightly different tone when struck by a raindrop. Multiply this by millions of leaves, and you get an incredibly complex, ever-shifting acoustic texture. Additionally, rain falls through the canopy in stages, first striking the highest leaves, then dripping from those to lower leaves, finally reaching the forest floor, each level creating its own layer of sound. The result is a three-dimensional soundscape, with sound coming from above, around, and below, enveloping the listener in a cocoon of gentle percussion. The sound of water moving through the jungle, streams trickling over rocks, waterfalls cascading down cliffs, rain dripping from leaf to leaf, contributes what researchers call blue noise to the jungle soundscape. Blue noise emphasizes higher frequencies while still containing lower ones, creating a sound that many people find particularly soothing. The constant presence of water sounds in jungles may be one reason these environments feel so peaceful. We're surrounded by sounds our brains have evolved to find calming. Thunder adds occasional drama to the jungle soundscape. Because jungle air is often extremely humid and unstable, thunderstorms are common. The thunder starts as a distant rumble, barely distinguishable from ambient noise, then grows louder as the storm approaches. The rumble becomes distinct crashes, sometimes so loud and close that you feel them in your chest as much as hear them. Then, as the storm passes, the thunder fades again to distant rumbling, eventually disappearing entirely. This cycle, approach, climax, departure, has a narrative structure that the brain finds satisfying, with clear beginning, middle, and end. Wind in the jungle is less common than you might expect. The dense vegetation breaks up air movements, so even when wind is blowing strongly above the canopy, the forest interior may remain almost still. When wind does penetrate, it produces a rushing sound as it moves through leaves, a sound that rises and falls in waves as gusts pass through. This wind in trees sound is deeply primal, activating ancient parts of our brains that monitored the environment for changes. But because it's a natural sound, familiar from our evolutionary past, it doesn't trigger anxiety. Instead, it produces a kind of gentle alertness, a pleasant awareness of the living world around us. The vocalizations of primates add their own character to jungle soundscapes. Howler monkeys, found in Central and South American forests, produce some of the loudest calls in the animal kingdom, roars that can carry for 3 miles through the forest. Despite the volume, these calls aren't alarming to listeners who know what they are. The deep, resonant quality and the fact that they're produced by animals you know aren't dangerous creates more a sense of wonder than fear. The calls typically occur in the early morning and late afternoon, marking the transitions between night and day with vocal fanfares. Gibbons in Southeast Asian forests produce elaborate songs, with males and females often singing duets that can last 15 to 20 minutes or more. The songs start slowly, build to complex elaborations with both partners vocalizing in intricate patterns, then wind down again. These performances demonstrate sophisticated vocal learning and coordination, and to human listeners, they're hauntingly beautiful, seeming to embody the mystery and wildness of the jungle itself. Birds of prey contribute occasional sharp cries, the scream of a hawk, the whistle of an eagle. These calls cut through the background noise, commanding attention for a moment, then fading away, allowing other sounds to resume their places. These occasional dramatic sounds, rather than being disturbing, actually enhance relaxation by providing contrast. The constant gentle background is periodically punctuated by something more assertive, creating dynamic variation that keeps the soundscape interesting without being stressful. Parrots and macaws add bright, loud squawks as they fly overhead in pairs or small flocks. These calls function partly to maintain contact between individuals. Essentially, birds calling to each other, "I'm here, where are you?" and partly to announce their movement through the forest. The calls are harsh and loud compared to songbirds, but they too become part of the expected jungle soundscape, their occasional presence marking the rhythm of the day. The forest structure itself affects sound propagation in interesting ways. Sound doesn't travel in straight lines through the jungle, but rather reflects, refracts, and scatters off countless surfaces. Tree trunks, leaves, vines, the ground. This creates complex acoustic effects where sounds seem to come from everywhere at once, or where the direction of a sound is difficult to pinpoint. This acoustic diffusion contributes to the enveloping quality of jungle soundscapes. You're not listening to sounds coming from specific directions, but rather immersed in an all-encompassing sonic environment. Different frequency ranges travel differently through jungle vegetation. High-frequency sounds are absorbed and scattered more readily, so they don't travel as far as low-frequency sounds. This is why the deep calls of howler monkeys or the low rumble of thunder can be heard from great distances, while the high-pitched calls of insects or small birds fade quickly with distance. This frequency-dependent attenuation creates a natural distance cue. Low rumbling sounds signify distant events, while high-frequency sounds indicate something nearby. The human perception of jungle sounds is culturally influenced to some extent. People who grew up in or near jungles may have different associations with these sounds than people from urban or temperate environments. But research suggests that certain responses to natural sounds are universal or nearly so. The sound of running water, for instance, promotes relaxation across cultures. Bird songs are generally perceived as pleasant. Thunder, while it can be startling, produces a kind of exhilaration rather than pure fear in most listeners, especially when experienced from a safe location. For sleep purposes, jungle soundscapes have ideal properties. They provide consistent background noise that masks other, potentially disturbing sounds, traffic, neighbors, household sounds. The complexity of the soundscape engages the auditory system without requiring conscious attention, preventing the mind from wandering to worrisome thoughts. The natural, familiar quality of the sounds triggers evolutionary responses that promote relaxation. The rhythmic, cyclical nature of many jungle sounds, the rising and falling of insect choruses, the approach and retreat of rain, the dawn and dusk vocalizations of birds, aligns with the body's own rhythms, potentially helping to entrain natural cycles toward sleep. As you imagine lying in a jungle at night, surrounded by the sounds of nocturnal insects, the occasional call of a night bird, the gentle patter of a brief rain shower on leaves above you, the distant rumble of thunder, the soft rush of a nearby stream, you're engaging your brain with stimuli it recognizes as safe, familiar, and appropriate for rest. Your nervous system, receiving these signals, can shift from the sympathetic activation of daily stress toward the parasympathetic state conducive to sleep. The sounds continue around you, but they demand nothing, threaten nothing, require nothing. They're simply there, as they have been for millions of years, as they will continue to be, regardless of your presence, your concerns, or your consciousness. And in that continuation, that persistence, that utter indifference to your individual worries, there is profound peace. The medicine cabinet, healing plants and therapeutic compounds. The jungle is quite literally a pharmacy. Many of the medicines we use every day originated in tropical forests, discovered through the traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples or through systematic screening of jungle plants by scientists. Understanding the medicinal wealth of jungles adds another dimension to our appreciation of these ecosystems and provides fascinating subject matter for peaceful contemplation. Consider that approximately 70% of plants identified as having anti-cancer properties by the U.S. National Cancer Institute are found in rainforests. Or that 1/4 of all modern pharmaceutical compounds are derived from rainforest plants. Yet less than 1% of tropical forest plants have been thoroughly tested for their medicinal properties. These statistics suggest we've barely scratched the surface of the jungle's pharmaceutical potential. Let's explore some specific examples. Quinine, extracted from the bark of the cinchona tree found in South American jungles, was for centuries the only effective treatment for malaria, and it remains an important medicine today. The discovery of quinine by Europeans was based on indigenous knowledge. Local peoples had been using cinchona bark to treat fevers for generations before European colonizers learned of it. The rosy periwinkle, a small plant from Madagascar's vanishing jungles, has provided two powerful anti-cancer drugs, vincristine and vinblastine. Vincristine is used to treat childhood leukemia and has transformed this once nearly always fatal disease into one with a very high cure rate. Vinblastine is used against Hodgkin's disease and other cancers. The development of these drugs has saved countless lives, all derived from a single jungle plant species. Curare, used by indigenous peoples in the Amazon as an arrow poison for hunting, has been developed into valuable medications. The active compounds in curare are muscle relaxants, and modified versions are now used during surgery to keep patients' muscles relaxed, making operations safer and easier for surgeons. This illustrates a common pattern. A compound that's toxic in one context becomes therapeutic medicine in another, properly controlled context. Aspirin, one of the world's most widely used medications, has its origins in salicylic acid found in various plants, including tropical species. While aspirin is now synthesized chemically, the original discovery of its pain-relieving and fever-reducing properties came from observing the effects of plant extracts. The Pacific yew tree, which grows in temperate rainforests, yields paclitaxel, marketed as Taxol, one of the most important anti-cancer drugs ever developed. Taxol is effective against ovarian cancer, breast cancer, and lung cancer. Initially, obtaining Taxol required harvesting the bark from Pacific yews, which killed the trees, creating conservation concerns. Scientists eventually developed ways to synthesize Taxol or obtain it from more sustainable sources, but the drug's initial discovery depended entirely on this forest species. Rainforest plants have contributed to treatments for heart disease, high blood pressure, arthritis, diabetes, and countless other conditions. The ACE inhibitors, a class of drugs widely used to treat high blood pressure, were developed based on compounds found in the venom of the Brazilian pit viper, a jungle snake. Scientists studying this venom discovered it contained peptides that affected blood pressure, and this led to the development of captopril, the first ACE inhibitor drug, which has since helped millions of people manage hypertension. The antiviral drug infevertide, used to treat HIV infection, was derived from compounds in a species of marine cone snail. While this isn't a jungle organism, it illustrates the principle that nature has spent billions of years evolving chemical compounds for various purposes. And these compounds often have applications as human medicines when properly studied and developed. Beyond specific pharmaceutical drugs, jungle plants provide numerous compounds used in traditional medicine and increasingly recognized by modern science. Guarana, from Amazonian vines, contains caffeine and related compounds, and has been used for centuries as a stimulant and treatment for various ailments. Cat's claw, another Amazonian vine, contains compounds with anti-inflammatory and immune system modulating properties, and is used to treat arthritis and other inflammatory conditions. Essential oils from numerous jungle plants, ylang-ylang, patchouli, eucalyptus, tea tree, and many others, have antimicrobial properties and various therapeutic uses. While some claims about essential oils are overstated or unsupported by evidence, there's no doubt that many of these compounds have genuine biological activity and therapeutic potential. The study of traditional medicine provides crucial leads for discovering new drugs. Indigenous peoples have accumulated knowledge over thousands of years about which plants treat which conditions. This knowledge, passed down through generations, represents a vast database of information about plant chemistry and pharmacology. When scientists investigate plants used in traditional medicine, they often find bioactive compounds that validate the traditional uses or reveal new therapeutic applications. However, this raises important ethical questions. Who owns this traditional knowledge? When a drug company develops a profitable medicine based on indigenous knowledge, should the indigenous community be compensated? These questions of intellectual property rights, biopiracy, and benefit sharing are actively debated, and there's increasing recognition that indigenous knowledge deserves protection and that communities should benefit when their knowledge leads to commercial products. The pharmaceutical potential of jungles provides a powerful argument for conservation. Every time a section of jungle is destroyed, we potentially lose species that could have provided valuable medicines. Given that only a tiny fraction of jungle plants have been thoroughly studied, we're almost certainly destroying potential treatments for cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's, and other conditions without ever knowing what we've lost. Some scientists are racing to document jungle plant species before they disappear. Ethnobotanists work with indigenous communities to record traditional plant knowledge before it's lost as young people leave traditional lifestyles. Chemists screen plant extracts, looking for compounds with interesting biological activities. Conservation biologists work to preserve intact jungle ecosystems, protecting them not just for their intrinsic value but also for their potential pharmaceutical wealth. The chemical diversity of jungle plants is astounding. Plants can't move to escape predators or unfavorable conditions, so they've evolved chemical defenses, toxins, irritants, compounds that make them unpalatable or indigestible. These chemical defense systems are incredibly diverse, with different plants using different strategies. Some produce alkaloids that interfere with nervous system function. Others produce terpenes that disrupt cellular processes or phenolic compounds that inhibit enzymes. Still others produce proteins that specifically interfere with digestion or immune function in herbivores. From a pharmaceutical perspective, these chemical defense systems represent a treasure trove of bioactive compounds. A chemical that evolved to deter insect herbivores might interfere with cancer cell division in humans. A compound that protects a plant from fungal infection might become an antifungal medicine. A toxin that defends against vertebrate herbivores might, in appropriate doses, become a therapeutic drug. The challenge lies in screening the enormous number of compounds present in jungle plants. A single plant species might contain hundreds or even thousands of different chemical compounds. Identifying which ones have therapeutic potential requires sophisticated chemical analysis and biological testing. Modern techniques like high-throughput screening, where automated systems can test thousands of compounds rapidly, have accelerated this process, but it remains enormously challenging. Synthetic chemistry now allows scientists to modify natural compounds, improving their therapeutic properties or reducing side effects. Many modern drugs are inspired by natural compounds. They retain the basic structure of the natural molecule but have been modified to improve stability, bioavailability, or specificity. This combination of natural discovery and synthetic modification has proven extraordinarily productive, yielding many of our most important medications. For someone seeking sleep, contemplating the jungle as a medicine cabinet offers interesting perspectives. Here is an ecosystem that literally provides healing, that contains within its green complexity the potential to cure disease, relieve pain, and extend life. The same forests whose rain sounds soothe us, whose fresh air invigorates us, whose ancient rhythms calm us, also offer tangible, measurable benefits to human health through the compounds their plants produce. There's something deeply reassuring about this. Nature isn't just beautiful or interesting. It's directly beneficial to human well-being in concrete, measurable ways. The jungle takes nothing from us and gives us air, water, climate regulation, and medicine. This generosity, this abundance freely offered, mirrors the kind of unconditional acceptance and support we seek in our relationships and communities. As you imagine the vast green jungle, picture each plant not just as part of a landscape, but as a chemical factory, producing compounds through its metabolism, some for its own use, some as defenses, some as byproducts of other processes. Imagine that among these millions of chemical factories, distributed across millions of species, are compounds that could heal diseases we haven't yet learned to treat, that could extend human life, reduce suffering, improve quality of life for millions. The potential is there, waiting to be discovered, a gift from evolution, from deep time, from the patient work of natural selection over eons. And then let that thought fade, along with all the others, as you sink deeper into rest. The jungle persists, producing its compounds, cycling its water, breathing its oxygen, regardless of whether we discover its secrets, regardless of whether we appreciate its gifts. Simply is doing what it has done for millions of years, asking nothing, offering everything. And in that offering, we find not just potential medicines for the body, but actual medicine for the mind. The peace of knowing we're part of something larger, something generous, something that has sustained life for longer than we can comprehend and will continue long after we're gone. We've journeyed together through the many facets of the jungle, from its rain-soaked canopy to its mysterious depths, from microscopic fungi threading through soil to emergent trees reaching toward the sky, from the patient sloth hanging motionless among leaves to the complex chemical compounds that might someday save lives. We've explored timescales that dwarf human comprehension and processes so subtle they're nearly invisible, yet so fundamental that life itself depends upon them. What emerges from this exploration is a picture of profound peace. The jungle is not a chaotic tangle, but rather an exquisitely ordered system, organized across multiple scales of space and time, with each component, from the smallest bacterium to the largest tree, playing its role in maintaining the whole. This is not the rigid order of a machine, but the dynamic order of a living system, constantly adapting yet fundamentally stable, endlessly varied yet recognizably itself. The jungle teaches us about patience. The trees grow slowly, adding layers of wood year by year, eventually reaching heights and ages that span human generations. The evolutionary relationships between species developed over millions of years of mutual influence. The geological processes that shaped the land operated over time periods measured in tens of millions of years. Nothing in the jungle is rushed. Everything unfolds in its own time, at its own pace, responding to immediate conditions while maintaining long-term patterns. The jungle teaches us about connection. Through fungal networks, trees share resources and information, supporting each other in subtle underground conversations. Through the water cycle, a single raindrop participates in the life of countless organisms as it moves from cloud to canopy to soil to root to leaf to cloud again. Through the oxygen-carbon dioxide exchange, every breathing creature is connected to every photosynthesizing plant in an endless reciprocal relationship. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything is part of larger wholes, larger patterns, larger processes. The jungle teaches us about resilience. It has persisted through climate changes, geological upheavals, asteroid impacts, ice ages, and countless other challenges across millions of years. Individual trees fall, species go extinct, local disasters occur, yet the forest as a whole endures, regenerates, continues. This resilience comes not from rigidity but from flexibility, diversity, redundancy. From having many species performing similar roles so that if one fails, others can compensate. The jungle teaches us about generosity. It asks nothing from us yet provides oxygen, water cycling, climate regulation, medicines, food, shelter for countless species, beauty, inspiration, and peace. This abundance flows freely, available to anyone and everyone, limited only by the jungle's capacity and our willingness to protect it. In a world often characterized by scarcity and competition, the jungle demonstrates that abundance and generosity are possible, natural, and sustainable. As you prepare for sleep now, you can carry these lessons with you into your dreams. When worries threaten to keep you awake, remember the jungle's patience. Not everything needs to be solved tonight. Some things take time, and that's okay. When you feel isolated or alone, remember the jungle's interconnection. You too are part of larger networks, larger patterns, connected to others in ways both visible and invisible. When challenges seem overwhelming, remember the jungle's resilience. You have more capacity to endure and recover than you might realize, and temporary setbacks don't define your overall trajectory. Picture yourself now in the jungle at night. Above you, the canopy filters starlight into a soft glow. Around you, the sounds of nocturnal insects create a gentle audio texture. The air is warm, humid, laden with oxygen and the subtle scent of growing things. You're lying on soft ground, supported by earth that has supported countless lives across countless years. The great trees stand around you like silent guardians, their roots reaching deep, their crowns reaching high, their existence a testament to patience and persistence. Feel the connection flowing through the fungal networks beneath you, linking tree to tree, creating a web of mutual support that extends far beyond what your eyes can see. Hear the water dripping from leaf to leaf above you, continuing its endless cycle. Sense the slow metabolism of the sleeping forest, the gentle breath of plants and animals, the quiet work of decomposition releasing nutrients, the patient growth of roots and fungi. Everything is in motion, yet everything is still. Everything is changing, yet everything remains fundamentally itself. You are safe here in this ancient place. The jungle has welcomed countless creatures to rest beneath its canopy across millions of years. It welcomes you too with no judgment, no expectation, no demand. It simply offers its presence, its peace, its patient rhythm. You can rest here knowing that the cycles will continue, that the processes that sustain the forest will persist, that tomorrow the sun will rise again and the forest will still be here, breathing, growing, living as it has for so long, as it will for so long to come. Let the sounds wash over you. The insects, the occasional bird call, the rustle of leaves in a gentle breeze, the distant murmur of rain. Let the scents surround you. The earthiness of soil, the green freshness of leaves, the subtle sweetness of night-blooming flowers. Let the humidity embrace your skin, the darkness ease your eyes, the support of the earth beneath you release the tension in your muscles. There's nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to do. The jungle asks nothing of you except to be, to rest, to allow yourself to be held by this ancient ecosystem, to participate for this brief moment in processes so much larger and older than yourself. Your breathing slows, matching the patient rhythm of the forest. Your thoughts quiet, like the forest floor in the still hours of early morning. Your body relaxes into the support beneath you, releasing its vigilance, trusting in the safety of this timeless place. The jungle will be here tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that, continuing its cycles, breathing its oxygen, circulating its water, growing its trees, housing its animals, producing its compounds, connecting through its underground networks. It doesn't need you to worry about it tonight. It doesn't need you to stay awake, to keep watch, to maintain vigilance. It has been caring for itself for 55 million years and will continue long after you and I are gone. So rest now. Let the jungle carry you into sleep on its gentle rhythms, its patient cycles, its ancient peace. Let go of the day's concerns, tomorrow's obligations, the ongoing narrative of your life. For this moment, you are simply a creature resting in a forest, as countless creatures have done across countless nights, participating in the most natural, most fundamental, most peaceful activity there is, the transition from wakefulness to sleep, from engagement to release, from doing to being. The jungle continues around you. The rain falls, the leaves transpire, the fungi weave their networks, the trees grow their cells, the decomposers break down organic matter, the oxygen flows, the carbon cycles, the water moves, the earth turns. All of this continues, has continued, will continue, and you can rest within it, held by it, part of it, safe within these ancient rhythms, these patient processes, these timeless cycles. Sleep well, knowing that you are part of something vast and beautiful, something that has endured across deep time and will endure long after this moment passes. Sleep well, held by the forest, cradled by the earth, surrounded by life in all its quiet, patient, persistent abundance. Sleep well, and may your dreams carry you through green canopies and gentle rain, past ancient trees and singing birds, along streams and over stones, into the deep, restorative rest that the jungle itself enjoys in the quiet hours of the night. If you've enjoyed this journey through the jungle tonight, I'd love it if you'd take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Deep Science Sleep. Every subscription helps me continue creating these explorations of science and nature designed to help you find peace and rest. Sweet dreams, and may the jungle's tranquility stay with you through the night and into tomorrow.